Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Mac, Jack, and Jim This Week in Sports show here Sunday, every Sunday on Northeast Streaming Sports, as we're live on Roku TV, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Twitter. We're all over the place, folks. Good morning to you. I'm your host, Mac, with your co-host, legendary boxing writer, Hall of Famer Jack Hirsch, and our legend on the show, the greatest Dallas Cowboy defensive lineman of all time, Jim Jeffcoat. And folks, before the show, of course, I had to put Jack in timeout again. So now he's at the bottom of the screen. That's why he's down there right now, because he gives me a hard time, not only during the show, but before the show. You know, I'm kidding.
But Jack is the key guy. It's boxing. We're going to talk a little bit about boxing.
Nice segue, Jim. Nice segue. Folks, last night, if you didn't see it, live on YouTube, Roku TV, and Facebook, Glove Fist, featuring our co-host Jack Hirsch and his co-host Frank Latirza, covered the title match between Ugas and Spence in a watch-along. And they did an incredible job last night. We also had Jim Jeffcoat was on there too, as he comes in live with a report from Las Vegas, as he was live at the fight too. And of course, I want to get both of your reactions on this. And before I get into that, today on the show, folks, we have Keith Angle from TGI Sports, Robert Butler from Sportscope, and the Philly sports guy, Jamie Pag. So they'll all be joining us as we go through today's show. So let's start off with Jack. Jack, first time you and Frank ever did anything like this. You guys got tremendous views. You got a tremendous show. And, you know, you're two very knowledgeable men in boxing. You both have been around boxing all your lives, have been in charge of shows. You've been a president of the Boxing Writers Association of America. Frank's been on TV, on radio, covering fights. And you got, like I said, you guys did a tremendous job. I just want to get your thoughts first on last night's fight. I was there producing the show. It sounded like to me, and from what I saw in the highlights, I didn't see it live because I was running the board and all the stuff that goes along with that. It seemed that Spence was definitely the aggressor, that Ugas did have a couple moments, but Spence was overall too much for Ugas.
Well, Errol Spence stopped Yordenis Ugas in 10 rounds. Ugas had, severe swelling on his eye, especially his right eye was completely shut. By the way, Jim Jeffcoat was at ringside. Jim, you were the equivalent of that sideline reporter for football, getting us, the inside, being on location over there. So kudos to you, being there and all. And, Spence was expected to win. The consensus was that Spence would win 8 rounds to 4, 9 rounds to 3. But Spence took it up a level in the sense that he carried the fight to Ugas. He wanted a sensational performance. He didn't just want to settle for a win. And for the most part, Spence dominated. He was just quicker, got off a lot better. But he did have one scare in the 6th round. I kind of wondered, Jim, what was the reaction? Ugas hit him with an uppercut. Spence lost his mouthpiece, and instinctively, and you can relate to this as an athlete, sometimes you do things on instinct that you shouldn't be doing. He started bending down for his mouthpiece. And the biggest rule in boxing, and in all sports, in reality, protect yourself at all times. And Spence neglected to do it. He thought the referee would call a timeout or something and give him a reprieve. Then Ugas hit him again and sent Spence reeling into the ropes. And for moments, Spence was in real trouble in that 6th round. And you thought you might have a major turnabout where Ugas might actually stop Spence. What was the reaction of the crowd, Jim, to that point and when Spence was in trouble?
Well, being that Spence was in Texas and Dallas, and he's from the Dallas-Fort Worth area, when he did that, you should have heard you heard the boos because they thought that was a cheap shot. But to Ugas's defense, he's fighting. He doesn't know that the mouthpiece is out, and he's wondering what's going on, and he's hitting Spence. And it was a negative, obviously, reaction by the fans, but it was a fight. And just like you said, you got to protect yourself. You got to protect yourself and let the ref stop the fight. He stopped the fight, obviously, for Ugas. when his eyes started puffing up. I think it was about the fifth round that his eye really started getting bad. So he did stop it, but he didn't stop it at that time. And Spence took a good hit.
But there was another little controversy in that round. When a fighter loses his mouthpiece, the action is not supposed to be stopped until there's a lull in the action.
Mm-hmm.
If one fighter is attacking another and he clearly has an advantage, the referee's not supposed to step in until it's obvious, the fight on the receiving end, can handle himself, isn't in trouble anymore.
Yeah.
It seemed like referee Lawrence Cole stepped in a little early then. When
I would
Spence
agree with
was
you.
still in trouble. And Lawrence Cole has been involved with some questionable decisions in the past. And I'm not saying there were any improprieties on his part in this fight at all. I'm not saying that at all. But him being from Texas, Spence being from Texas, it's natural for some people to think that maybe he was looking to, save Spence in a sense, even
And
though I'm not going in that direction personally.
But he did save Spence because Spence, obviously, he had his bell rung and he was stumbling. We all saw that. And he saved him and he gave him a chance to get back in the fight. And he was winning the fight at that time because the first round was a defensive fight. And then Spence started taking over from that point. And the referee saved him because he might have got knocked out.
Jack, let me ask you a question. I remember watching older fights, and when the eye swelled like that, the corner used to cut the eye open.
Mm-hmm.
And release that
You're
pressure.
thinking the Rocky movie with Mickey and Rocky Balboa, Mac. I mean, maybe long ago in the past.
I'm thinking, Jack. I'm thinking Corey. I think I remember them doing that because he used to swell and cut so easily. That's the thing that really stopped Corey in a lot of fights. But I can remember them cut. They don't do that anymore, do they?
No, they have the end swell, a thing like a little eye, and they press it directly on the eye. What was kind of bizarre yesterday, the ringside physician comes in the ring between rounds. He wants to look at Ugas's eye, but the cut man is holding your end swell, pressing it on the eye. How can you look at the eye? And the doctor's trying to get a peek in behind it, and it's weird. What's he supposed to say? Take the end swell off. And boxing, you don't have much of a chance of a reprieve. It's not like a timeout. It's not like football, and I'm not saying one's tougher than the other. Football's tough in some regards, boxing in the other regards. But in football, if a guy gets a bad hit, the medics could come on the field. They could take an extra half minute or whatever to check him out, for him to get on his feet. In boxing, you got to respond quickly or it's all over.
Yeah.
And that's why even fans get restless between rounds if a doctor's checking the fighter for an extra long time.
I know. It's crazy.
Yeah, sometimes one fighter, it's unfair to the guy who has the advantage. He has his opponent in trouble. And then the doctor wants to check the guy extra carefully. And it takes away one opportunity.
That's a safety protocol because his eye, it started swelling. And I mean, he tried to see out of the eye and he told him he could see, but he couldn't see.
I was waiting. I tell you guys, I was waiting for the razor blade to be taken out. It never happened. So it's kind of
give Ugas credit for heart. When they stopped the fight, you saw the doctor in the 10th round finally tell him, look, no more. And Ugas raced towards Spence. It's as if he tried to convince the doctor and ref he could continue. He didn't want the plug pulled on him, even though it seemed like a hopeless job. He had the heart of a champion.
I agree.
A little bit of belief that maybe he could still turn it around. He could have checked out with Arnold. A lot of times fighters want their corner, the referee, and their doctor to stop the fight. And they want to get out with their dignity, because the worst thing for fighters to say, I don't want to continue. No fighter wants to say, I want to quit. They want someone to make the decision for them, so this way they can say they wanted to continue. And oftentimes it's not done for them.
Well, Jack, before we move on to Keith, one thing I remember, I think as you do, where the fighter one case, a fighter wanted to stop, and the corner made him go out again. I think I'm not sure what fight that was, but that was the weirdest thing I ever saw. Backstage right now, folks, we got Keith Angle, the TGI Sports talk host who does a great job on his show. He does 3 times a week, comes in for us on Fridays and Sundays, and will be the guest host on our draft special coming up 28th April. So let's bring up Keith, see how he's doing today. How you doing today, Keith?
Good morning, gentlemen. Happy Easter.
Good morning, Keith.
Keith, you have so much clout that I could be talking in mid-sentence, and as soon as Max sees you checked into the studio, he cuts me off for you.
He's in Keith, don't worry. I put him in timeout already. He will continue to be in timeout as he wants to dominate the show when we have guests on. I know how Jack goes. He's like I said, sometimes I think I'm the rooster, and Jack's like 10 hens, and I got to keep him in. Keep it in mind.
Well, he is the highest paid guy on the show, so he ought to get.
True. That wasn't supposed to get out, Keith. All right, we let it out of the bag. So anyway, Keith, we of course we were talking about the Ugas Spence fight. Northeast Streaming Sports had a huge production, tons of views. Great job by him and Frank. But with you, I want to get to, of course, the areas you covered. We're going to start off with the Yanks. As the Yanks bounced back 5-2 against the Orioles last night. You had Hicks went 2 for 3. Stanton went 1 for 4 with an RBI. Rizzo did his thing, driving another RBI. Donaldson with the big 2-run home run blast with 2 RBIs. The new catcher, we can't leave this out because he's been hitting really well. Lee Trevino, his cousin Jose, he went 2 for 4. Talon only went 4 2/3 innings. I think he got the win. I think he did. I'm not sure if that's enough to get the win or not.
Oh, you got to go 5. You got to go 5.
That's what I thought. 2 concerns. Yankees starting pitchers have got to start going deeper into the innings. Everybody talks about spring training. It's quick. It is too short. And as I talked to Dr. Paul one day, I said, listen, you should show up to spring training able to go at least 5, 6 innings, 7 innings. You got year round, you're paid, get that arm loosened up, stretched out by the time you hit spring training, let them work a little bit on your mechanics. I don't want to hear these excuses. It's the 9th game. I'm tired of that stuff. A lot of pitchers right now are pitching more than 4 innings, 5 innings.
Well, I'll give him one excuse last night. They did have like a 40-minute rain delay that hurt him last night. So, but your overall comments, Mac, are dead on. It's the same problem we've seen with the Yankees the last several years. The pitchers, other than Cole for the most part, don't go deep enough into games. I had Cole up, sorry.
You opened the door, Keith. Go ahead.
But even he hasn't done it yet this year. But yes, that's been a problem. And again, part of that is the way the Cashman continues to build around this team around guys who are injury risks and whatnot, and they're either being cautious with them or they just don't have the ability to go deeper into games anymore. So I think I like Talion's game, and I hope that he can get to where he's throwing at least 6 or 7 innings a game, or this bullpen will be burned out by midsummer again.
I agree, 100% agree. I just don't get it when and us as Yankee fans, we want to give him the benefit of the doubt. We want to give him excuses, except for me, who, we say, oh, it's early in spring training. He's got to stretch out his arm. He's had all year to stretch out his arm, as far as I'm concerned. And if you're not ready to pitch on opening day to go 7, 8 innings, then to me, I'd be finding that son of a gun. That's just me, I am, Keith. So
did pitch pretty well while he was in there. So
yes, he did.
But it was the Orioles, so we have to.
Yeah, exactly.
With that.
All I was going to say is no one's taking the league, and everybody's 5-4, 4-4. Nobody's really taking that division and running away with it.
Yeah, I think there's 2 or 3 teams at 5-4. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mac made a statement yesterday that was really revealing, really logical. They talk about pitchers building up their arms in spring training, and Max said, don't these guys throw in the off season? Their arms should be built up throughout the year. You're living in the day and age of modern athletes. It should be in shape all year round. So these guys come to spring training. What are they, completely out of shape?
Well, no, I think it's about how they're taught and they're trained throughout their career, right? You go back to, again, I hate to do this, I do it all the time, I know, but I go back to the 70s and before that, when guys had off-season jobs because they weren't making any money, they'd still come out and be ready to throw 9 innings on opening day. So, it's just a change in the overall attitude and the way organizations approach these and protect these pitchers, where I think they're not protecting them myself. They don't build their arms up enough, and that causes more injuries, not less.
That's a great point. It's a great point. Maybe they ought to make them work on the farm in the offseason or something. Maybe that should be in their contract or something.
Look at whatever Nolan Ryan did is what everybody ought to be doing, And he did try to change this. When he was running the Rangers, and now it's a while ago now, but he was trying to change this dynamic and actually having pitchers do something and actually pitch a lot during, spring training and the off season. And his plan was to have his pitchers go, as long as they could go, not take them out because the script says they have to come out after 80 pitches.
Oh, I was listening to the game, Keith, last night on the radio on my way home, and you got to protect them. And I'm like, you come on, Walman, come on, stop already. Stop.
Well, don't get me going on those two, man. Jeez.
I will. So let's talk a little bit about my prediction about the new third baseman. Right, he's got a little pop in his back, and let's not leave out Falefa either. He did go 2 for 4, but I think Keith that. And I saw him make a couple good defensive plays. I know he's been hurt. He's a little bit older, but he's playing third base. He's not playing shortstop. He's not playing second base. He's playing a position where he's got to be quick, not necessarily athletic, right? He's got to have a good arm. He's got to get to the ball quick.
36-year-old Josh Donaldson.
Yes. But he's been injured, so I understood the concern when they went and got him. But before that, he was unbelievable as an infielder. He's got some pop in his bat. He's got edge. And that's what I love about him. And Rizzo have got something that the Yankees haven't had in years, and that's an attitude, right? Enough of this being Derek Jeter and taking it and walking around like, nothing bothers me. I don't care if we're winning or losing. I'm finally glad to see that we have a couple players that have edge that are going to bring edge to the team, Keith.
Yeah, well, I agree. One thing I will give Donaldson, I wasn't a big fan of the trade, but he can win me over just by playing the way he has, hitting some big home runs, making some big plays in the field, and playing 130 games. I'd be happy. Maybe 120, I'd be happy. Because he doesn't have to play 162 games with the depth they have in the infield.
I agree.
And one thing these Yankee teams have lacked in recent years, and I talked about it Friday with Severino, is an energy and that edge that you talk about. And Rizzo, when he came over in midseason last year, you saw a huge difference in the play of that infield, a more crispness to it. And I think Rizzo had a lot to do with that. And Donaldson is the same kind of player. I don't know. I'm probably too hard on Donaldson because I've had a problem with him since, he had a problem with the Yankees supposedly throwing at him when he was a Blue Jay, 7 years ago. So I probably.
By the way, Mac, I can't let your statement go. Derek Jeter played with a great attitude. They didn't have an indifferent attitude.
I'm not putting Derek Jeter down. I'm just saying that the way Derek Jeter played, and it seemed like most of the team did, with the exception of maybe Posada. If they struck out, they struck out. If they won, they were supposed to win. There was the only time I saw Derek Jeter get excited was at the end of a World Series game where he made a big, huge play. His attitude, though, was not like the attitude of, say, Mickey Rivers or Craig Nettles or players like this who came out and they were going to hit you in the mouth. They ain't scared to mix it up. They had pitchers that would throw at you if you threw at them. And this is the type of thing that the Yankees have got to get if they're going to win that division, because they're playing probably the toughest division in all baseball, I would say, competitively. With the Red Sox, the Jays, and the Rays, you got to have some kind of edge if you're going to beat these guys, because they certainly have edge. There's no doubt.
So you want to get in more brawls? What you're saying?
Yes. I would have a game plan before we win the game.
At least most baseball brawls, Jim, I wouldn't have to worry about being on the bottom of the pile.
That's true. That's true.
Good point. Good
But you'd have to worry about getting hit across the middle.
Yes, across the middle of your head.
Send Dan Campbell of the Lions your resume, Mac. He might have a coaching opening. And you're his type of guy, the kneecapper.
I don't know if I'd bite somebody's kneecap. I might kick him there, but I don't know if I'd bite him. Keith, let's get into the Nets Celtics breakdown real quick with you. I know, you're from this area. You're a Knicks fan, as a lot of people are from this area. But I know you follow the Celtics. I know you follow the Nets. It's going to be a really interesting game, right? You got two offensive dynamos on the Nets going against maybe one of the best defensive NBA teams in the country, the Celtics, who have a couple good scorers too. The Celtics have an edge on them. They're picked to win this series. How do you see this playing out, this first game coming up today? Do you think the Celtics have to get game one, or does it really matter?
I think game one's important to set this tone in this series because, and I think I'll go far as say this. I think the team that wins today will win this series. And I think the Nets, and I did pick the Nets to win this series on Friday when we talked about it. And for only one reason. If Kevin Durant is healthy, and Kevin Durant, when he's healthy, he's still the best player in basketball in my mind. He almost single-handedly took them to the finals last year. He was a toe on the line away from beating the Bucks basically by himself. Mm-hmm. And, again, can he do that again this year? I don't know. He's a year older. He still has injury issues. If he's Kevin Durant through this entire series, I think that gives the Nets that little bit of edge. They don't go as deep as the Celtics for sure. I would even give the Celtics a coaching edge, I guess, in this series, even though they got a rookie head coach. So I think it'll be a very close series. And I think this game one is important to set the tone in this series.
Well, you know the old saying. Go ahead. Sorry, Jim. Go ahead.
Well, I said that's interesting because Nash, everybody thought that we're going to bury the Nets. And I'm not saying you're not right, but they thought that, and he's got them at least playing at a level they could possibly win it. And you're right, Durant is a different guy. He's unique to be that size, and he's really plays like a guard.
No, easily one of the best.
Yeah, I think he can play all five positions on the floor. He is that kind of player.
Yep.
Can I ask you guys this question? Has there been any other athlete in history who's come back from an Achilles tendon injury the way Durant has? I can't think of another who's come back and basically been exactly the same as before.
That's a great
That's
question.
a great point. Yeah,
That is a good question. I'd have to think about it, but yeah, I know that I had a player, Greg Ellis. He wasn't obviously in football. He came back from an Achilles injury and became he made the Pro Bowl.
Yeah,
So it's very unique.
Dan Marino comes to mind too because his game didn't involve really moving around a whole lot. So
Yeah.
But he was older when he did it, so he probably wasn't a player he was younger anyway. So
No, I don't think so either. Keith, I disagree with you. Who's going to win that series? I think it's going to be a great series, but anything could happen. I just say foul Durant hard every chance you get. Could put a couple goons on him, and don't matter if they get kicked out or not. I would hassle him constantly.
Yeah, but that doesn't work. For whatever reason, it does not work against Durant. It doesn't bother him. It actually gets him fired up. I mean, he's a unique player.
Yeah, he is. I agree with that.
Everybody's tried that, and nobody's been successful for it with it. He just finds a way to beat you.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
With all that said, I will give him my East prediction. I think my prediction, the Bucks will repeat, is my prediction for this year. I like the Bucks a lot, and they're starting to get it together, I think.
I think my prediction is that the Bucks will repeat in the East, but Phoenix has gotten better.
Yeah, that'll be a great series if they match up again. Yeah. That was a great series last year. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And a lot of people aren't talking about Drummond either. Drummond's a big presence under for the Bucks. I mean for the Nets. So we'll see what happens with there. Real quick, Keith. I did watch a show with your. I'm trying to scout. Let me get this right. Matt Groh, right? That's his name. That's how you pronounce it, Groh. Yeah, he did a nice little piece about working with Belichick as he started out as a scouting assistant all the way up to number two in the front office. A lot of people talk about how hard it is to work with Belichick, how he's demanding that. But Matt talked very lovingly and glowingly about working with Bill Belichick.
Yeah, look at it. I think like anybody else, just because you're demanding doesn't mean you're a bad guy or a hard guy to work for. I've worked for demanding people, and as long as they're fair and all they want to do is succeed, and you're all on the same page, then you'll get along with them, right? Tom Brady's relationship with Bill Belichick didn't go sour, 20 years ago. It went sour near the end. And mostly not because of Bill's being so demanding, but because Bill really wanted to move on from Tom, and Tom wasn't ready to go. So, I think Belichick gets a bad rap a lot of times, just because of the way we see him in press conferences and whatnot. Yes, he's a demanding guy, and that's why he's won 6 Super Bowls in 20 years. So, and I think Matt Groh was very open and honest in his answers.
Yeah. It was a pretty cool thing when you watch people actually know the person that we see on media, and a lot of them are so different when it comes to being personal and in the locker room and stuff like that. So interesting interview or press conference with that. So Keith, now remember, next week, Keith, you're going to have to give us your pick why the Patriots are going that way, and then me, Jim, and Jack will gang up and tell you how wrong you are. But we will write this down.
Usual for you.
Oh, come on. We will write down your pick and our picks for the Pats for their first draft pick, and we'll see who comes out right. So put a little thought.
Right now. We'll see if it changes in the next 7 days.
Yeah, it might. And don't worry about who falls to who. We're not going to count that because there's no way you can predict all that.
No, we don't know.
Just who you think it would be.
Can I just and we'll talk about something else, or
what,
can I just trade his pick and we'll talk about something else for 20
well,
minutes?
you got to tell us who they're trading for and why. So, I mean,
harder. I guess we'll just make a pick.
Yes. So, folks, Keith Angle, TGI Sports Talk. Catch him at his site on Northeast Streaming Sports, on the Facebook page, YouTube, and also on our new Roku TV channel. Great show, great guest, great talk. Keith, thanks for coming in. We'll see you Friday.
Great to be here as always, guys. Have a great day.
All right. Have a great day, Keith.
Bye.
Take care, Keith. Mac, you're giving us a harder homework assignment than thought because of the intangibles. Players drafted sometimes have to fit a coach's personality. Some coaches are easygoing. They'll go with just about any guy. And some head coaches, I'm sure you'll agree, Jim, have a preconceived notion. I don't want this guy. I just don't like him for whatever reason. Maybe because he's a little too flamboyant for them. And then there's the coach-GM relationship. Is the GM going to respect a coach so much? Like with the Jets, Joe Douglas, is he going to give in to Robert Saleh? Because Robert Saleh's a defensive guy at heart. So he's probably going to lean towards the defensive players. So it's kind of that little tug of war, relationships from within. So it's really a tough thing to figure out with the teams. We do our best, but it's so many little intangibles involved.
There you go. Jack says it.
Yeah, but you also have a scouting department, and that's all they do all year is the preparation for the draft. And you have to trust your scouting department, the real good teams.
I would imagine, Jim. I know you were a coach and a player. You were involved in scouting too. This you give updates to the head coach and GM all the time.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
You're bringing in film. You're talking about interviews. You know all that stuff. What you saw, that's constant. I did a little bit of I was supposed to do a little bit of that too, and that's where I drew the line because I didn't have enough time. Backstage right now, folks, we got one of my favorite guests, been with us forever. You will also be a guest host on the April 28th draft show. Let's bring in Sports Scope host Robert Butler.
Hey, good morning, guys.
Good morning, Robert.
Jim,
How
Jack.
How you doing, Robert? It was a long night for me, Jack, and Jim as we were up doing the live watch along with the Ugas Spence fight. And it was all past midnight, and so we know what you do as far as all those hours you put in, Robert, today anyway. So
Whew, I'm exhausted, guys. I know. I'm being held up by stilts today.
and
I have no idea.
And Jim, Robert goes to church directly after this show, so he can.
I know.
He's got to clean his soul after visiting with Jack.
Yeah. Well, if I can make
I'm
it,
going
I'll
out
tell
for
you.
a jog after this show.
Yeah, see,
Yeah.
that's Jack. So anyway, folks, let's get to some of the topics that me and Robert are going to talk about, and we're going to start off with something I've been talking about all week, and me and Jack have kind of been debating, and that's the Brady Dolphins situation, right? I when it broke, I was lucky enough to be the first show coming on about it, and everything started making sense to me about Flores, about Brady retiring and unretiring, and it just was tampering from 2 years ago to me. All this stuff was played out. They knew what they wanted to do. Flores got a hint of it when they said they want him to meet with Brady. He wanted no part of it 2 years ago. And then also with the Saints coach taking a break from football. Now everything starts fitting together. I know there's been more information coming out. And Robert, I want you to give us your opinion on what's going on over there.
Well, it's so stupid. It sounds like a Stephen Ross idea. Okay. He's always trying to grab the headlines. I remember one year they gave Ndamukong Suh just a boatload of cash. They have so many minority owners that are celebrities. Jennifer Lopez, Fergie is a minority owner. The singer from the Black Eyed Peas, guys. He's got a history. You know, Jim, I've heard you guys talk about Washington before of how bad they're run. I've heard the same things from friends of friends about Miami. I'm talking over the past 10, 15 years.
Yes.
Just crazy, just insane. Think about this for a second. Let's take a trip about 20 years ago. John Gruden was the coach of the Raiders. Tampa Bay had to give up 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, and $8 million in cash. You mentioned Sean Payton. The ownership, Miss Benson, she's going to put that with general manager, and he's going to say, "Oh, really? Okay, that's too much of a coincidence. You're going to have to give us about 4 or 5 first-round picks because he's still got 3 years left on his contract. Not to mention Tom Brady will still got a year on his contract. So if Tom Brady should be counting his blessings that Brian Flores did file that suit, okay? So the league's going to get together. They're going to say, okay, we're going to put all this together. Yeah, you guys want Tom Brady and Sean Payton? Give us about 7 first-round picks, about 4 second-round picks, and give us $10 million. And then we're going to have you investigated for collusion with the NFL, not to mention. But I believe it. That sounds like an idiotic and then on top of all that, guys, what's Tom Brady going to do? I read Mike Florio. He's a lawyer. And he says that it would be perfectly legal for him to own part of the team and play. So what's he going to do? Play for 1 or 2 years? You don't have no quarterback. You have no draft capital.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds dumb enough that this one of his, it's like Stephen Ross got hammered one night. He said, you know what? Let's go after Sean Payton and Tom Brady. And then the staff said, sir, we're sobered up. Do you still want to do this? Yeah, I think I want to do it. But he's a billionaire. I'm not. So maybe it is fun to do crazy stuff. But that's my opinion.
Wow. Go ahead, Jim.
No, all I was going to say is a lot of those billionaires, what they want, they get. You see the things are happening, obviously, in Washington, even in Carolina, and even with Dallas. Whatever they want, they get because they're used to getting whatever they want.
Back in the day, it was simpler. People forget how Don Shula became coach of the Miami Dolphins in the first place. He was the head coach of the Baltimore Colts and under contract, and he just went over to Joe Robbie and the Miami Dolphins and became their head coach. And Carol Rosenblum, the owner, was going to sue, Shula in the NFL, and Pete Rozelle asked him to drop it, and he gave him a number 1 draft choice, and number 1, and that ended the whole matter. So that even happened back in the day.
Yeah. It's just a lot of different money.
That's a Stephen Ross idea. Let's throw something, the craziest thing we can do. Let's throw it against the wall and see if it sticks. We'll make the headlines no matter what.
But do you guys believe Brian Flores really knew there was a meeting with Tom Brady and he turned it down because of ethics. My thing is, if you're a head coach in the NFL, and Jim, you know the way these guys are, if you have a chance to have Tom Brady as your quarterback instead of a struggling Tua, who Flores wasn't crazy about, these head coaches are normally going to jump at the chance. They're going to figure, oh, this is the owner's doing. All I am is the coach. He's put on my team. I play him. I'm better off.
Yeah, but here's the thing you got to think about, too. Flores and Brady were also in New England together.
Yeah.
And maybe there's some dynamics there that didn't mesh for whatever reason. And maybe he knew some things about how Brady was at this point in his career, and he didn't want to deal with that.
Yes, that's a great point. Great point. And I'll tell you
both things can be true about Flores. I've also read that him and Chris Greer butted heads
I've heard that
with
too.
personnel decisions. Flores went through 3 offensive coordinators.
Yep.
I mean, he was going through them like nobody's business. So I think all of this can be true. Stephen Ross likes to do crazy stuff, and maybe Flores, it may be difficult to work with. Still a good coach, but he may be difficult to work with.
That's true.
Well, there's a lot of head coaches that have been difficult to work with throughout history. As long as they've won, they've put up with it. I think being a young head coach and him knowing that them talking to Brady, it would be a violation. Just him being involved there may get him, a fine at the least, or maybe sanction. I don't know. I just think in my opinion, anyway, if it was me, I don't care who the person I am meeting. If this is going to affect my profession in any way, I want no part of it. I don't want any part of that. And there's a lot of things that I think that stem from this, right? I think that Sean Payton is a false person. I think Tom Brady is a false person, and I think that I know it's a business, as everybody tells me, but where is your personal dignity? Where's your integrity? Yeah, where is that? You just put it in your back pocket because you become a professional athlete? I don't think that's right either. So anyway, very interesting. I know we're gonna get more information, and I'll tell you right now, between this and the Washington football team, the NFL, the Congress is going to get all over them, and books are going to be opened, and the way they do things are going to be open, and it's terrible for the NFL. That's coming after this, guys. Mark my words on that.
2 teams may be for sale.
Yeah, there might be 3. We'll
put our money together, guys, and we'll buy the Dolphins.
Well, I don't even know if I want to buy that team.
Maybe you take the majority share.
Maybe the Denver owners are getting out for another reason we haven't thought about yet. You never know.
That's a possibility.
Yes, let's talk about some Dallas Cowboy news. Tragic, Kelvin Joseph. Being around somebody who killed somebody, being part of a fight before that. He talks to the Dallas police. 2 arrest warrants were issued, and what it looks like is that Dallas encouraged him to go down there, speak with the police, get it going, get this thing over with. Of course, it's far from over with, because if you're there and you don't try to stop it or call the police, I think you can get in quite a bit of trouble too.
Yes,
so
correct.
I'm not sure what's going to happen, but it's a lot better than just sitting back and making the police work, because it's going to be worse. So the Cowboys tell him go talk to him. There's 2 arrest warrants issued. What do you think, Robert? First about, Kelvin being in that position, as a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot, but a few young players do end up doing it. People complaining there's no mentoring. There are programs. They are talked to. But Jack came up with the idea, maybe they should just hire a few of them, 3 or 4 of them, to be around these young kids all the time. And maybe that would save them a lot of trouble. What do you think, Robert?
Jerry would definitely do that. He used to have security watch over Jim, Pac-Man.
Why were you saying me? He never had,
they only had
there is
and then they figured Jim could handle himself okay.
Ironically, I saw him last night, Larry Wansley, and that is his job, is to watch over the players.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it wasn't handled with Joseph. Joseph should have immediately went to him and let him know the situation, because this thing happened March 18th.
Yeah. It's and according to ESPN, he was a passenger, guys, in the car where the shots came from. So I mean, technically, that would make you an accessory.
Exactly.
You know something? I'll be honest with you. I used to hound these players, and now that for doing this stuff, now that I've gotten older, I mean, you're a single guy, you got plenty of money, you want to have a good time, you want to still hang out with your old friends, because the new friends, you're not really sure if they're your new friends, but your old friends, you know, from way back, you want to have a good time, you want to meet women, ladies, okay, you know, and one thing leads to another. We're with alcohol, egos and alcohol don't mix. And that there's nothing good happens after, I can't remember what coach said, nothing good happens after midnight. And before you know it, and then you're caught up in a major situation. It hasn't sunk in with these guys at this age. And I could see it happening to myself if I had that kind of money at 21, 22, 23 years old.
Fast cars, fast women lead to trouble.
Yeah, fast life.
No, but a lot of times a young man gets in a situation, he's with his friends, one of them does something, it could be in the spur of the moment, he could bump into someone else, someone could say something to his friend, and one thing quickly leads to the other, and now he's in a spot, he doesn't want to, the term is drop a dime on his friends, he doesn't want to get them in trouble, and the thing happens out of his control, and you know, and if you go to the police about it, you know, now there's a problem. You worry about your own safety because you've turned on, you know, people, you know, whether they're going to try to get back at you and you don't want to sell them out. And it's ugly. It's bad. It's just a messed up situation. My theory was, I mentioned this with Mac yesterday, Jim and Rob, the best thing a player can do, if a team signs you, stay in the darn city all year. Don't go back home like Jim was in Buffalo Bills. Stay in Buffalo year round.
No,
that would drive me
Don't
crazy.
go back home. Concentrate on your darn job. Make that your residence as long as you're playing there. Live in darn Buffalo for, you know, all those years.
No, Jack. No,
you're good. That's why, Jim, you could have gotten in trouble. You're lucky you didn't. By going back home.
Jack,
you lucked out, Jim, but not the rest of them did.
I'm from New Jersey.
Jim
okay, well.
Jim wasn't a rookie either. And you know, the most impressive thing Jack said in that whole bit he just did was drop a dime. I haven't heard that since I watched 1930 movies. That was incredible.
But here's the thing that people are not talking about. This is really tragic because they initiated it. Joseph and his friends initiated the fight. And then to go there and to shoot randomly and kill somebody, that's tragic. That kid was only 22 years old.
Yeah.
And you are an accessory to it because this happened March 18th. And now you're coming because now the police want to question you. This should have been done months in March. After this incident happened, you were trying to hope that nobody knew, but obviously cams are going to be there. And I'm not saying that just like you guys, if you're young, you're going to go out. That's not it. But you got to know who you're around, and what situation you're in.
Well, Jim and Robert. I know when you guys, not Robert as far as this part goes, but I know when rookies come into camp. You know, they're nervous. They were the big star. Now they're not anymore, right? You're trying to make a team now. I don't care how great you think you are or they think you are. You still got to make the team. And you got these vets looking at you like you're not taking my job. And you've watched these guys on TV. Some of them are the best of the best. And you're nervous. And you are uncomfortable. And you're going to reach out to somebody. And that's why there's got to be veterans in that locker room that even though you're competing against them, have got to be assigned as team leaders, or as Jack mentions, to hire somebody to spend all they can, the time they can. Even it means rooming with them, where they're there all the time, and let them talk and let them get all this stuff off their chest. Because if you don't, if the team captains don't, and they don't have mentors in there that can, they're going to reach out back home to their friends. That's guaranteed. I would do the same thing. So this is what the teams have got to do. They've got to get people in that locker room all over these young kids.
But here's the issue.
Go ahead.
Here's the issue you have, and Robert probably knows this. Joseph had problems at LSU. That's why he went to
transferred
Kentucky.
to Kentucky. Yeah.
Yeah, he had issues. He was suspended at LSU. I mean, he is a Baton Rouge kid too. And as we all know, that there are some rough areas in Baton Rouge. A couple of years ago, the running back that played for, of all teams, Washington, he had situations in college at LSU. He was a Baton Rouge kid too. I'm not saying every kid from Baton Rouge is bad, but there's some issues when you go home and and you got to be smart enough to know that sometimes you have to step away from situations and step away from people. And that's just intelligence.
But Jim, it's not, guys, it's not just rookies, it's established stars. Look at Alvin Kamara. He's in Las Vegas with his friends, and there's a good chance he picked up the tab for all of them. And there's an incident just passing by on the elevator, and someone gets badly hurt. And he supposedly somehow winds up in the middle of it. Maybe he wants to show his friends, I'm not backing off, I'm with you, whatever the reason. And now we don't hear anything about that, but the NFL is going to have to deal with it.
Yes, you're right.
I
Guys,
do agree.
one more story real quick, Mac. I'm not going to hold. 1999 Super Bowl, the Titans were in it. It was a god-awful ending, but Ray Lewis was involved in a double murder. If you think about this guy, this is his word. This ain't mine. He said he had a come to Jesus moment because that next year he goes on to win Defensive Player of the Year, Super Bowl MVP, and he was 1 inch away from his whole. We would have never seen Ray Lewis, the Hall of Famer, the great mentor that he became after this. Things can change really quick. You do have to watch the company you keep. And I would add in, you want to get someone that the player can communicate with that's not too much older and not too much of a buddy. I understand that, but someone that the player's comfortable with. And I would go behind and talk to the player by himself and say, are you comfortable with this person? Nobody's going to you don't have to be nobody's going to get fired or anything, but are you comfortable working with this person? We'll find you someone else. We need to keep you guys kind of learn this lifestyle at least the first few years. He's only been in the league a few years.
Joseph?
Yeah.
This is second year. This
second year,
Yeah. So let's turn real quick to the NBA. We had at least 2 games already. I really like the Grizzlies and I really like the Timberwolves, Robert. I think the Grizzlies will end up winning the series. And as I said before, I wouldn't be surprised if the Timberwolves beat them. I don't know if you got a chance to watch that game or at least get the highlights, but it seemed to me that the Timberwolves just wanted it more than the Grizzlies last night. Your thoughts on that and your thoughts on the other games played?
Well, Patrick Beverley, I mean, I know he's got in trouble for his cursing. He had an issue with Chris Paul last year. That didn't look good. But he is that veteran guy that wakes the team up and gets them to play at a higher level, even though he's not really that talented guy. He is that spark plug to that team. Kind of reminds me of John Starks a little bit, guys. Kind of reminds me of a poor man's Gary Payton. Not quite as talented as Gary Payton, but just plays that great defense. And as far as Memphis, that was why I was really concerned about the youth of Memphis. And they had 6 days off. Maybe they were rusty between games. They gave up 130 points, though. This is going to be a good series, and it can go either way. You're right. And I wouldn't be surprised if they just flat out beat Memphis. It's not unheard of. I
wouldn't either. A defensive back got signed by another team in your division, Stephen Gilmore.
Yeah.
A lot of people want him. What does this do for the Colts defense overall? I mean, they had a pretty good defense last year, Robert. Does this make them that much better, or does this keep it equal out there for any of the losses the Colts have?
You know what? I looked at his age, guys. You ain't gonna believe
That's what I was gonna say.
He's 31 years old. I thought he was older than that, Jim. Mm-hmm. He's 31. They made a trade for Ngehu, with the Raiders. They got Matt Ryan. I'm really considering potentially picking them to win this division this year. I have to look at the draft. I got to look at the schedule and the makeup, but I think that's going to be a big deal. They already had a good defense.
Yeah, but Robert, didn't he have a significant injury, even at being?
Yeah, I think he only played like 3 games last year, but I don't think it's like an Achilles or anything.
I think he tore his hamstring, didn't he?
Yeah,
I thought that's what it was.
I think he was just holding out for money.
Okay.
31 years old, still pretty young. I thought he was 34. Actually, guys.
He was a casualty of the cap at New England because Belichick doesn't pay individual players too much money, and his contract was up. If it wasn't a contract situation, there's a good chance he'd still be a New England Patriot.
Yeah.
So he signs with Carolina, free agent. Now he's with the Colts, and he might have a lot left in the tank. Well, I mean, we don't. We'll see. But
yeah, I mean, it could be a complete loss. He's still pretty top level.
Oh, I think so too. So Robert, let's talk a little bit about Doc Rivers, not what he's doing right now, but they actually talked to him about taking the Lakers job. Now I don't know who's interviewing him or questioning him about taking the Lakers head coach job. It makes no sense to me. I don't even know why it would be attempted. But Doc Rivers did say there was no way that he would ever be head coach of the Lakers because of what they did to Vogel. And what do you think about that?
Well, I mean, Nick Nurse's name was brought up from Toronto. What was this guy's name? Utah's coach.
Quinn
Snyder, I think. Yeah.
Quinn Snyder.
Mark Jackson. Why would you? I mean, you got Rob Pelinka. He's the general manager. You got Magic Johnson working on a trade this is semi Miami Dolphins stuff here. Okay. You've got all these different moving pieces, guys. And Jenny Buss needs to go out, hire a real general manager, let everybody on the planet know that this person is in charge of hiring the coaches and getting the players. Let the coaches coach, let the players play, and let the general managers be the general managers. Have that structure. They've only got one playoff win in 11 years, other than the obviously what was that thing called? The bubble deal. That being said, I mean, they got the championship. That can never be. And I'm one that's not like everybody else. A championship is a championship is a championship. And there shouldn't be any asterisks because everybody had to play by the same rules. Mm-hmm. But they might be a mess to me. I would fire everybody, trade everybody, and say, I'll give this new general manager about 7 years. Because that's what
I have the solution. Rob, let LeBron James become the head coach and bring in his X and O guys. And
that's pretty
he'll
good.
be more totally invested in the team.
They tried that with Magic Johnson.
Coach. Yeah.
It might, that may work. It worked with Jerry West.
Yeah.
I'm watching the Winning Time, guys. That's a great series. If you guys get a chance, if you got HBO.
Yes, I do.
I've heard it is, and I definitely will take it out when I get a chance, which will be probably a couple of years from now. Robert, one last thing from you before we let you go.
Yeah.
Of course, big day in Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
The Jackie Robinson Day. The first, I don't know if the first, but at least the major one that broke the color barrier with the Dodgers. Branch Rickey gave him the opportunity. He didn't care what anybody thought. Most of the players had a problem until, Pee Wee Reese came over and started talking to him on the field. I mean, a lot of people helped make this happen, but still Robinson went through a lot of nonsense he shouldn't have had to go through. What do you make of this day? What are your thoughts on the Jackie Robinson day?
I actually, I was looking at being a sportscaster at one time, just a play-by-play guy, color guy, and everybody wearing 42. I mean, how do you figure out the lineup? I guess you got to have copies of the positions, right? This person plays first base, the batting order, because everybody wore 42, because I thought that was pretty cool. Actually, that would have been a nightmare if you're, calling the game, but I guess there's another way around it as far as doing that. 75 years, you think about it, when you get older, you have more of a sense of time. That is not that long if you really think about it. It feels like, as far as race relations, everything, somebody who's I've lived on both coasts. I know, guys, I'm from Tennessee, but actually lived on both coasts before. I've lived in Florida. I've lived in Denver. I've been to Mexico. Pretty well rounded. I just sound like I've been here all my life. I think we've came a long way. I really do. Contrary to what others may say, for whatever reason, I think we've came a long way. Always room for improvement. It's a beautiful thing. I didn't even know it's been going on since 2004, but I think they just started wearing the 42 thing just a few years ago. Am I correct, Jack?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was retired. They allowed Mariano Rivera to continue to wear that number because that was his number too until he retired. I'm a believer of this, guys. I don't think they should retire numbers. I think a select few should be allowed to wear the number. For example, like Mrs. Jackie Robinson should decide if there's someone who gives so much to the community, she would give a pass to that player to wear her husband's number, to kind of honor it in a certain sense. I kind of like to see numbers live on, but they seem to put all these numbers out to pasture. I mean, Jackie Robinson's 42 is extra special, obviously, but I kind of like to see the numbers live on. Not everyone to wear it, but certain special players who give back.
So sort of like a trophy or honorary. That's not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea at all. Robert,
go ahead, guys.
Robert, before we let you go, sorry to cut you off, Jim.
No
before
problem.
we let you go, Sunday you're going to be a guest host on the NFL draft special we'll be having. This Sunday coming up before the draft show, I want you to give us Tennessee's first pick in the draft and why you think it's going to be him. We're going to write it down. We won't make too much fun of you on the draft show if you're totally wrong, but we will be investigating who we think the Titans should take in the first round, and then we will make fun of you on Sunday's show. We won't do it in front of the national.
So next Sunday you want to draft. Okay.
I want
Sounds
your
like fun.
Yeah, I want your best pick. I don't think about who's fallen or all the different things, scenarios. Just who you would pick, who would be your pick, and why. And that's all we want from you.
Mac, it's got to be realistic who might be there for Tennessee. Hutchinson is definitely not going to be there for Tennessee.
But
you can't.
Yeah, I mean, common sense.
Hutchinson, perhaps.
Common sense.
Well, let me
Right,
write that out. Put a line through that one. Hutchinson
all right,
there.
we will too, Robert, and we will check and balance you when you come on. Everybody, Robert Butler from Sports Scope. He's everywhere on social media. Great show. He is all over the headlines and all over the big news stories. Robert, you have a great Sunday, and we'll see you next Sunday, Robert.
All right, guys. Have a happy Easter, folks.
Happy Easter, Rob.
All right, guys.
Go get that soul cleanse, buddy. Love you. So anyway, guys, Robert Butler. We're going to take our first break on the other side. Special treat for you, as always. The Philly sports guy will be coming in, giving us his opinions and his thoughts. And, of course, we got a lot to talk about just about what happened last night. That might take the whole segment. So I can't wait to get him on. Pags will be up with us right after these messages, folks. So please stick with us. We'll be right back.
You worked too hard, you too much. The cheesecake made you greedy, like your aching head and stomach. Hear this message from old Speedy. Alka-Seltzer, plop, plop, fizz, fizz. Oh, what a relief it is. Plop, plop, fizz, fizz. Oh, what a relief it is. Those Speedy bubbles relieve your upset stomach and headache fast. For acid indigestion alone, Alka-Seltzer Gold. Oh, what a relief it is. What a relief.
No idea why. Do this one, I guess.
If you have a side gig and need to file your tax,
I don't need to.
Chiquita banana, and I'm here to say I am the top banana in the world today. Now you know the best bananas in the land. So don't play a part with an inferior brand. When it says Chiquita, it's a very good day to buy bananas.
When the job is done, this guy'll be ready to dig into something mighty good to eat.
How do you handle a hungry man? The manhandlers.
One of the manhandlers is Campbell's vegetable beef. Gets a man-sized supper off to a good hot start. Mmm, good.
The manhandlers.
I heard you want to be a frito bandido like me. You do? Then you must sing the bandido song. Let's sing together. You just follow the bouncing Fritos corn chips bag. Ay, 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 ay. I am the frito bandido. I like Fritos corn chips. I love them, I do. I want Fritos corn chips. I'll get them from you. Ay, 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 ay. Oh, I am the frito bandito. Give me Fritos corn chips and I'll be your friend. The frito bandito, you must not offend. Now, boys and girls, you are frito banditos too. You sing the frito bandido song and you loco for crunchy Fritos corn chips. That's nice. Munch, munch, munchy bunchy Fritos corn chips.
Shaper is the one bit to have when you're having more than one. Shaper pleasure doesn't fade even when your thirst is done. The most rewarding flavor in this man's world for people who are having fun. Shaper is the one bit to have when you're having more than one.
Ever wonder what makes Schaefer the one beer to have when you're having more than one? One reason is more than one fermentation. Most brewers just ferment their beer once, but Schaefer is fermented twice. Once to make it beer, and twice to make it Schaefer. The one beer with flavor so fine, it keeps shining through glass after frosty glass. More than one fermentation is one reason, but of course there's more than one reason behind the one beer to have when you're having more than one.
This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning. You're listening to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Mac, Jack, and Jim This Week in Sports Show, as we're here every Sunday, 8 to 10 a.m. I'm your host, Mac, with your co-hosts, Jack Hirsch and Jim Jeffcoat. And besides playing with this board and, a little non-rest, maybe I'm just getting aggravated earlier than I normally do. I normally don't start getting aggravated, guys, about 6 o'clock at night when I'm at my other job and everybody wants to stay away from me. So,
no, it wasn't fair last night, Mac. You were working the board. You were doing all the work behind the scenes. I was doing my thing. I was somewhat relaxed. Jim was in the club room. I mean, Jim was by the bar in the club room, so he was like socializing, I think, having a good time.
Yeah, I was.
Jim was like fun, kind of fun. A little work, but basically fun.
It was fun, Jack.
It's still a busy day, right, Jim? I mean, I know you went somewhere before.
Because I had to go to the event before the boxing match. So I went to that event and then I went to the boxing match. But I did have fun.
Backstage right now, we got a guy that would be great to go to a boxing match with. I don't know if he would dress up in some kind of boxing uniform and start punching people with his gloves or whatever he would do there. But he would be an excellent guy to go to a boxing match right now. Of course, I'm talking about the Philly guy. Jamie Pags is with us every Sunday, giving us a look at the Philadelphia sports and all the things he does on social media. One of the biggest on TikTok with over 100 and something followers, I think he's at right now. But anyway, let's bring up Pags and see what's going on. How you doing, Pags?
Good morning, guys. Happy Easter.
Hey, Pags, I just thought of something Mac didn't mention. In Spencer's last fight, it was against the Philly guy, Danny Garcia. So Philly was in the house boxing-wise in a big way at Dallas's stadium.
Well, Philly's always in the boxing world. You know, it's like I would say, yeah, a lot of boxers have to go through Philly at some point. You know, at some point in their life that they go to either train there, they're dealing with a trainer from there, or they're actually from here as well.
Yeah.
So.
Did you ever think about going to a boxing match, dressing up as, say, Rocky Balboa, and just go in there and just start yelling and screaming? I know you'd probably be normal there, Pags, though.
No, I never thought about that.
All right.
I would go to I would absolutely go to a boxing match. I feel like that's I'm one of those guys that remembers the old days really well and fondly. Like, I was a big fan of Wide World of Sports, where we would watch boxing all the time, so I remember watching the arm wrestling and the boxing matches. And I think it was the Hagler-Hearns fight that was like a really big deal, where we sat there and like there was a bunch of us that were around the television set just, waiting for that fight to happen. And it happened in a stadium. So it was like, those are the types of things that I kind of remember fondly. And I feel that boxing, obviously it's boxing is not the way it was back in the day. And it's unfortunate because it is a great sport, but, some of the players that were outside kind of making some of these big fights started to worry more about dollar signs than they did about how to grow the sport. And I feel like that may have been some of the cause to boxing losing a little bit of its heyday from back then. But I remember those fights really well.
Yeah, Pags, we've talked about it a lot, and I think we're going to do a special coming up one of these days when I get enough time to work on it. How you fix boxing. And I think the biggest thing is there's no CEO, no chairman that runs it. It's like the Wild West out there. You got a bunch of sanctioning bodies. You got a bunch of promoters out there that want to do what they want to do to make the most amount of money, which makes sense. But there's no person in charge here to kind of keep everything in line. And I think it's one of the only sports that's like that. I mean, every other sport that I can think of, real sport that it has real competition and dollars behind it, there's somebody in charge, or at least a body in charge. And boxing just doesn't have it. So we're going to do a special on that pretty soon. And I'll get some big boxing minds in, and we'll talk about what we can do to make the sport a lot more organized. Some people aren't going to make as much money, but that's too bad. The overall sport will bring in more money, which will make it up, I would think, in the end. But anyway, let's get
I'm voting for Pags to be that commissioner.
Yes. All right.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'd probably have the biggest open mind about it, because ultimately I feel that boxing is losing out to the MMA fighting and things of that nature. And that
I would agree. It was just unfortunate.
It is, and it's not. I kind of look at it as it's the evolution of boxing, where
I don't think so. I think it's the boxing falling back. Evolution is something that that comes from things and ideas and things tried. Boxing really hasn't done that. I mean, I don't know how you can evolve if there's no plan. So I mean, I get it. I get this is what it is now, but we didn't evolve by just running around running around just trying to kill things and eat it, right? You got to have a plan. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know where that came from. Pags, let's get to Philadelphia. The 76ers. You predicted that they're gonna win this series easily. They may get beat one game, maybe by a lot. I predicted that there had to be a third player that had to step up, because if you stop Embiid, just one of those guys, I don't think could win it. So Maxey does that, right? Maxey comes up, he does his thing. Harris even clipped in some points, and I think that's your wild card going forward is that third scorer. I think he had 38. I think Harris kicked another 26. Harden didn't score a lot. He scored 22, but he had, I think it was 14 assists or 16 assists, something like that. Embiid was a motor underneath, grabbing a bunch of rebounds. He didn't have a lot of points. So you guys performed as a team against the Raptors team that really is talented. People don't realize how talented the Raptors really are. I think there was there an injury too last night? I didn't catch the whole thing this morning on the
There
Raptors.
was an injury. Somebody, one of the guys got a foot injury.
Right.
And I don't know exactly what the extent of it was. I didn't hear any report about it after the fact, but I know that he was on the court for a little while and then needed help getting off of the court. It looked to me like it was his actual foot. So it could, when I think of a foot, I think of like a Liz Frank sprain or a Liz Frank break even. Like it looked like it was much worse, that he couldn't put any weight on it at all, walking off the court and things of that. So, let's hope he's okay. I don't want to see anybody get hurt that way, but there were a lot of things that I thought that the Sixers did yesterday that got the Raptors unraveled. It was really interesting to watch that kind of transpire. Obviously, the Raptors had 2 players foul out of the game. Van Fleet had 2 fouls in the first minute of the game. And, it was just, you could tell like it was going to, he fouled out with, 30 seconds gone in the fourth quarter. Like literally it was his 6th foul. So and you could tell that the Raptors they didn't have answers. They did not have answers at all. And it was much different than how they've played them previous, at least in the regular season and even previous seasons, where that things were normally working, and yesterday was not. Last night was not working at all, and it showed. The Sixers really just had that game in hand from beginning to end without any question.
So you still think that the Raptors will have that one big game, maybe at home where they blow the 76ers out?
I do. And I think it's just going to be more of a. I think that the Sixers kind of do a repeat performance, excuse me, of what they did last night in Game 2. It'll be a little bit closer than a 20-point difference. So I do think it'll be more like 8-10 points. And then Game 3, I think that the Sixers go up there and kind of take it to the Raptors because they're going to be playing in desperation mode. I think Game 4, I think the Sixers are just going to be a little bit more lax. It's just I think that it's almost like they're going to take the night off, and that's when Harden gets into his gets the guys out for a little while because they're being up there for a few days, and they just have that little bit of hangover, and then they come back home and take care of business. So I think it was a 5-game series all along. I'd love to see them sweep, and Shaq be right, but I know how the Sixers team is, and I just know how Harden likes to go out and have some fun. And from what I'm told, Toronto's not a bad spot to have some fun at.
Well, I know you would know that.
Don't you feel that the 76ers, this is a huge series for Doc, and this is a huge series for Harden because there's questions about both?
Well, yes. Obviously, I feel that there's a piece of me that thinks that Harden has been sandbagging the last few weeks, that he's older. And, it's like besides taking the break, he just wasn't playing 100%. And, and that's because he's got the playoffs coming up. Why go bust it now? He busted it. He showed what he had the first couple of games and then just took his foot off the gas and coasted the rest of the way.
Is that wrong? Realistically, that would be a smart thing to do. Get ready for the playoffs. Because that's all people remember at the end of the day. They're not going to remember the last few weeks, what went on, but they are going to remember these playoffs.
I agree. And I feel that he, I don't think it was wrong at all. I feel that he did what he wanted to do, and he had a plan, and they executed that plan. And yesterday started the season. We've played this entire season just to get to yesterday, where yesterday's Game 1.
Pags, that's a lot of speculation you're saying there, and I don't agree with taking your foot off the gas at all at any time. If you get beat, you get beat. But if that's really your plan, you know, I mean, his plan hasn't worked in the playoffs so far. So different teams, but still, he has gotten to the promised land a couple of times, and he hasn't taken his foot off the gas and has laid an egg a couple of times. I don't know if he should be taking his foot off the gas at all. I think he should be playing basketball the way basketball is meant to be played. I don't think the Bucks going to take their foot off the gas. I don't think the Celtics are going to take their foot off the gas. I don't think they have it all this year. So, I mean, it all sounds great and all that stuff, but come on, man. I mean, you go out, you play the game to win. You don't play the game to say, well, I'm taking a rest. I don't believe all that stuff.
Yeah, and I agree with you what you're saying, but this load management thing, all these guys do this load management. I'm not agreeing with it. You go to play to win, but that's just the reality of it. Pax makes a great point on there, is that their load management. They're trying to make it to the playoffs and trying to get in the playoffs, and then obviously it's you got to win there, and it's do or die. Now it becomes a little bit more important to win these games, and that's just what it is. They all do that load management, no matter how.
I don't see I don't see the Celtics or the Bucks doing any load management at all. I'll tell you,
they do it. They do it. You might not recognize it, but they're load managing those guys, and I never agreed with that. You play to win, but all of them do it.
Yeah, and I also think that because of that, the Celtics peaked a little early. You know, I think
that a little early, Pags. They continue to win all the way up to the end. Let me tell you something. If the Celtics,
and now let's see what happens in the playoffs. Let's see exactly they got a number two against the Nets. Let's see how they handle them.
Right, and if the Celtics beat the Nets, don't they play? If you guys win, are you next in line for them?
No,
you're lucky.
No,
what's that?
Yeah, if we hold serve, we'd have the Heat.
Yeah, maybe you're a little lucky.
If the Heat beat the Atlanta Hawks.
Right.
Keep that in mind. It's not a gimme. Remember what the Hawks did last year to your Philadelphia 76ers in the playoffs.
And the Heat doesn't have the big center. I'm not Heat. The Hawks don't have the center. He's out.
Yeah, Capella's out.
Capella's out for a week.
So, yeah, and I'm like I said, Atlanta, I don't expect to be really an issue, and that means that the Bucks would wind up playing the Celtics, and we would play the Heat. So, I mean, that's if everybody holds serve. Obviously, the Hawks winning or the Nets winning would change all of that. So, I guess we'll see. But truth of the matter is that it doesn't matter what anybody thinks. It matters what happens now from this point on. So whether you believe that everybody should never take their foot off the gas or it doesn't matter. Truth of the matter is that now's the time to, if you were going to start the engine and step on the gas full throttle, now's the time that you have to do it.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, it's not going to matter.
Kevin Durant said if the Nets don't win the championship this year, their championship window's still open beyond this year for at least a couple of more years. Is it the same way with James Harden? If the Sixers don't win it this year, how wide open is their championship window? Is it just one more year next year with the Harden and Embiid combo, or is it a bit wider than that?
Who can really say? That's the one thing that Durant's saying, "Oh yeah, our window's still wide open if we don't win it this year." How does he know? How does he know? You know what I mean? It's like they haven't been able to put it together. He hasn't won a championship with the Nets. So he doesn't know. That window hasn't opened yet, as far as I'm concerned. It's the same thing with the Sixers. This window hasn't opened yet. So we could say all the things. We could make all the speculation saying, oh, well, we've got a couple more years to be able to make it happen. Dan Marino thought he had an entire career to be able to win a Super Bowl. Never made it back to a game. So
the Cowboys drafted him ahead of Jeff Coat. He would have had that.
Oh, my goodness. That's why I'm bringing Too Tall to that thing, so he can get you back.
Yes. Oh, Jeff.
Gil Brandt told me personally he didn't like Marino.
Right.
He would have never fit in the offense.
I think about how much of a different world the game of football was back then in comparison to the way it is now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, I've heard some very interesting stories about Dan Marino. I think the way the Cowboys were run then in comparison to the way the Cowboys are run now, that Dan Marino would not have fit in well with that team. I think the Cowboys back then were very strict. Where now it's more of a joke where it's like you can be a con and that's part of Convicts Row over and being a Cowboy, where it's. Where
wow,
and I'm and like I said, and that's funny thing. It's also like throughout the rest. But truth of the matter is, back then they didn't have that.
Those Cowboys,
they didn't have that.
Hang out with them off the field.
When you played for Tom Landry, I mean, you were
help me.
Listen, I mean, I listen. The Philadelphia Eagles. They don't have to. Players don't get in trouble if fans do. That's why they used to have a judge in court and jail right in the stadium. So I mean, that's why the players are good over there, Jim. That's the Dallas fans are too nice. That's what it is.
They won one Super Bowl.
Yeah, well, they've been in two, and they give Dallas fits every year, and there's more recently have they won than the Cowboys have. So I mean, I wouldn't go there. And, you see me not bad mouthing them being a Giants fan either. But all I'm saying is that when your fans are that way, Jim, your team doesn't have to be that way. So that's what I think is going on in Philly.
Yeah, I can't believe you just defending them.
You
took a shot at me.
Yeah, I know.
I didn't take a shot at you. Actually, I thought I talked pretty well about the way you guys played in comparison to now. Now it's just like it don't matter what you guys do. If you've been in jail, you're good enough to play on the Cowboys.
Listen,
but it's always been like that. You just didn't know it.
Yes. That could be. Social media has just made it a lot more out there. Where like I said, when you think of Tom Landry's teams and you think of just all of the way that they were put together, and even there's one specific scene in even in Invincible when they're talking about obviously Vince Papale, that when they play the Cowboys in that first regular season home game. And they sit there, and then they all get down in the 3-point stands for the offensive line for like victory formation or something like that, where they just kind of, and that's the way you think of the Cowboys. That they were just very organized, very meticulous on how they did things, and all of that stuff where the extracurriculars from outside of football never made it into either that locker room or onto the field. And that's and that's what made John Facenda was the one that coined America's team, and he was from Philadelphia. So I mean, I guess I got to give it that little bit of pass for that. But ultimately there was a reason why, because they were very regimented. They were always a good team during that time in the 70s and 80s. And it takes a certain level of, the locker room, just having the locker room and the culture to be able to withstand that year after year after year. And I feel like out of everything, that's the one thing that the Cowboys have lost, that they do not have that culture the way that they did.
And I agree with that, but Pickles is right. Read North Dallas 40. And if you're a young player, when I came into the NFL and heard the stories, they were unbelievable. They just didn't have the media presence and the social media that they have today.
Yeah,
and that's what happened.
I mean,
because you had the Dwayne Thomases, you had the Hollywood Hendersons,
of course,
you had the Ron Springs.
And
Hollywood Henderson got kicked off the Cowboys eventually by Tom Landry. He said enough was enough. And Dwayne Thomas decided he wasn't talking to anyone because he had a contract dispute. So he just wouldn't speak to anyone.
They had characters. Trust me. When I first came to the NFL, they had, and every team had characters.
Of course they do. Of course they do. Back to when the sport started, we didn't read about. If we read about it, it was weeks later. And normally the person covering the team, if he writes too much stuff about the team, will not be allowed to get in the locker room anymore. So it had to be kind of whitewashed somewhat. Yeah. I mean, it had to be. So, Pags, one more thing for you before we let you go. Is, as you know, we'll be having the April 28th draft show. And the reason why he knows that is because he's going to be reporting live from the draft for the NFL draft show here on Northeast Streaming Sports, as Jim will be coming in too as a guest talking about their pick. But he'll be there live as he is most times. I mean, as far as I know, he's been there for almost ever. I mean, I think it goes back all the way to Who was the first commissioner of football, Jack? I know you remember because you were around then. Who was that again?
Bell.
Right, Bell.
Commissioner Bell.
So anyway, Pags, but what I want you to do for
it was George Halas in reality ran the NFL.
Well, really, if you want to know the truth, it was Jim Thorpe. I thought you knew that. But anyway, Pags, next Sunday, before the draft, of course, is that Thursday. We want you to come on and give us, as I told you, and I'm going to remind you today, what will the Philadelphia Eagles' first 2 draft choices be in the first round and why? And, this, we will study this also, Pags, to debate you, and we'll write down your pick. And we might agree with you depending on, I know how you pick your drafts. You just want to get all alignment and on both sides of the ball. I think that would be a whole draft if you were the GM. You want to have a quarterback or running back. The guard would probably be playing quarterback. So anyway, we'll debate you a little bit. Do a little bit of studying for us in between your running around the nation, following your Philly team.
I was all ready for it today. I thought you meant today. So I was all excited and ready for it. I actually did some research. I got my whole thing together here, and now I'm not even, I got to save it till next week.
You do. You can refine it. I mean, something might happen. You might see something that you didn't see before, Pags. Maybe, just maybe, the Eagles make the move before the draft so we can save a little bit of time and see why they did what they did. Maybe that will happen in this next week. So anyway, Pags, thanks for researching. Be ready to go with it on our show. That's all we're going to do next week is just talk about the draft and your guys' picks and our picks against your picks and all that happy stuff. So it should be a lot of fun. Folks, follow the Philly Sports Guy on TikTok and all Instagram. Everywhere he is, he's at every game. He divides himself up. He has twin brothers, and the rest of his family run out there and they cover all the games at once. And you think you're seeing things, but you're not. It's the Philly Sports Guy. So check him out. And what else is going on, Pags, before we let you go? I know you had that.
Real quick, I got to let you know, Pags, I was going to vote you as a commissioner. I'm taking my vote away.
Yes.
That's okay. You know what? I don't know that I want the job. Although, if we're talking about the commissioner of football, then I'm okay with that because I wouldn't mind being able to use the jet whenever I want to for the rest of my life and all those things that Goodell gets. I tell you, I used to think that he was like the most overpaid guy in the world, and then you'd think about all the things that he has to deal with and be able to make sure it gets swept under the rug or gets hidden and stuff like that. And I tell you, there's a reason why. When you know where all the bodies are buried, you better make sure that that they take care of you for the rest of your life because he's got the roadmap to where to that whole cemetery.
Yeah.
Listen to Pags with his mob references. That's great stuff. Anyway, Pags. Anyway, what else you got going? I know you got this charity thing you're doing. Update us on that.
So next Saturday we're doing it's a wiffle ball / chugging for charity where we're going to have Philadelphia Phillies and Eagles, both past and present, showing up to raise money for the Eagles Autism Foundation. Okay. So this is my second annual event. But we're making it bigger and better, and our goal is to raise over $10,000 this year, and break from last year. I think I raised it was like $8,600. So we're trying to get above $10,000, and it's going to be an all day full of fun. We're going to be reporting it and doing it live here on Northeast Streaming Sports, so you'll get to see it all day long. Where you maybe even get to see me hit a wiffle ball, or you won't see me chug a beer though. That is not happening.
What event do you have for autism that doesn't require chugging beer? That's all I want to know, because everything I've seen so far, heard so far, there's you got your shuffleboard chugging beer, you got your wiffle ball chugging beer, you have your ping pong chugging beer. I mean, what contest do you have? Look at
this is my first beer chugging competition ever. Okay. So I don't know what you're talking about because the Philly Sports Guy doesn't drink when he's working.
Right,
so.
Right. I've heard that before, and I've also seen the
Wait a minute. I've seen videos.
Yes, I have.
Have you seen videos?
Yes.
Have you chugging? But it was somebody gave me the drink, so
Yes.
You may see me do a small shot every once in a while, but usually I do not drink until after the games. You know, there's just
after the
too many
games,
kids. I'm not an angel. I drink.
Okay.
You know, but but I not before the games and not like for the draft. I'll be so mostly sober. You know, I mean,
The
it is
slippers
Vegas,
you were
so
last year, right.
yeah. Well, I was pretty sober last year. I didn't drink at all.
So there you go. Yeah. So,
But yeah,
anyway,
that's part of the thing though. There's too many kids watching. There's too many people
That's
paying
true.
attention. The camera never leaves me. And when you have that type, like even at the bar when I go, it's like I have to be really careful because I don't want to, I can't go stumbling at it anywhere because it's like after I got that face paint on, somebody's always trying to catch me messing up.
Yeah.
And I
That makes
refuse
me
to
do
give
that.
them that
That's a good
opportunity.
I wish more people would do that because then we wouldn't have these issues with these players if they thought that way.
What do you mean? You mean painting themselves up, Jim?
No, when they're out in public, you got to know around you. Pags is, unique in the paint, but he also understands that that's his brand, and he understands that he has to protect his brand.
And, I am forever getting pictures or videos of people that, the biggest story this week was the Philadelphia fan throwing the phone on the field. The Phillies fan throwing the Mets fan's phone on the field. Yep. Who was there at the very end of that video? Everybody thought that I was the one that threw the phone because of the way that the picture looked. When I had nothing to do with it, I just paid attention and really was protecting the Mets fan because you could tell that things were starting to get a little bit more volatile. And I'm just like, hey, listen, this was a nonviolent situation.
How did he get the phone to throw it on the field? Do you know?
So the Mets fan, what happened was the Mets fan was all excited about the win. This was for the 2-0 game. So it was the Saturday night. And he came running up the steps and kind of put the phone in the Phillies fan face. The Phillies fan just grabbed the phone and tossed it. Literally, it was like it was that close to his face that he just grabbed it and did a quick toss. Well, of course,
Philly fan's not guilty. Then I don't like what he did, but you have a phone stuck in your face.
Well, and that's out of all the things that could have happened there, you know what I mean? Like a fight could have broke out or whatever. It was just a non-violent type of situation. Every player in that whole scene wound up getting 15 minutes of fame. Just because of it all happened. And you know what? It's non-violent. So everybody could talk about how bad Philadelphia acts. Truth of the matter is that it was all egged on by the Mets fan. It wound up being completely non-violent. Right. And it, instead of elevating to that point, I just really went there to make sure I'm like, hey, calm down. It's all right. You're going to be fine. Everybody gets out of here. Nobody gets arrested. He got his phone back. The phone was in great shape. It did not even have a crack or a scratch on the phone because it landed in the grass. I mean, it was a great event, but and it made everybody a little bit more popular for a few minutes. But that's it. You know what I mean? And that's all it was, where instead of having a fight or having cops involved and things like that, people getting hurt, this was a goofy, funny moment.
The Philly fans are so sensitive. They're just the greatest fans in the world. But they did beat up Santa Claus, and I was there for that game.
Were you there for that game? Then you saw how bad that Santa Claus was.
Oh my goodness!
He was a bad Santa. You know what I mean? He was skinny. He was drunk. The real Santa didn't show up, and next thing you know, we're getting snowballs. Hey, listen, I got a snowball for you, Jim. When I see you at the draft, I got it in the freezer waiting for you.
You're gonna dump water on Jimmy Johnson's hair. Come on, these wonderful fans. Oh, they're always trying to. Hey, they're just misunderstood.
They are.
I'm going to tell you, Pags, if you were around when Jeff Cobb was playing, he's one of the players I think you could have gotten to. You could have gotten inside his head by yelling, you got no pass rush, Jeff Cobb. You would have had him try extra hard, and I think you would have thrown Jim off.
And I'm like that where I start to Google somebody. So if I can find something about you where you still live with mom, or mom makes you a very specific, this is your favorite meal and stuff like that, I'm using that type of stuff. I never go below the belt. Obviously, you never bring in anybody's family. You never bring in any type of injury. I even go as far as to say if something happened off the field, I try my best not to use that. Like it's, there's some things that everybody's got a skeleton in their closet, and I don't like to bring those things out. However, if you got an ugly girlfriend that is definitely fair game. You know, and I'm going to do whatever I can because ultimately all I'm trying to do is throw you off of your play for, you know, a few seconds. And that's all that would need to happen. And on occasion, you see it happen. It's funny when I remember playing the Red Sox and I was right there on the left field, just chirping at the left fielder. And he broke like a second too late and it fell in for a single. And I got all excited because I got him. And everybody knew that I got him. You know what I mean? Because he was paying a little bit of attention to me instead of paying attention to the field. And that split second made the difference. You know, and it doesn't work all the time. But like, Russell Westbrook, when he played for Washington, it's a shame that the guy got thrown popcorn on him because he was going into that locker room dejected because there was only 1,500 people in the arena. And you could hear me from across the other side of the stadium. And I was on him, like as anybody could ever have been. And he was going in dejected because he couldn't do anything. And I wasn't doing anything malicious. I wasn't cursing at him. I don't curse. You just bag on them and just rag on them. And when you're getting to them, you know what I mean? You could just feel it. And, like I said, it doesn't always work. When I tried to do the same thing to Giannis had a great game. You know what I mean? And I know he could hear me. You know what I mean?
But he done that to me at that time, Pags, I wouldn't have worried about it because I had 72 people at the game. They would have found you. And
well, you know
you
what?
might have been floating in the river.
That's the fun part about this is that on occasion you hear the players actually will they're like the Saints game. I mean, I that first time they went in 2018 when we lost in the conference semis, I guess. Against the Saints. I take full responsibility for that first interception to start off the game with Drew Brees. You know what I mean? Because I mean, that was quiet as a pin drop in them, but you hear me yelling and screaming, and we're coming after you. We got you all day, blah, 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 blah. And he looked at me at one time because you could just tell. He's like, shut that guy up. You know what I mean? Just because I was doing my thing, and I'm not a quiet guy.
You're not. That's for sure. So, folks, again, Philly sports guy Jamie Pags will be live doing reports for the draft for the Northeast Streaming Sports Draft Show, 28 April, starting at 7:30. We'll cover the first round that night. Pags, go out there, have a little more fun. We'll see you. Pags. We'll see you next Sunday, and we'll see you Friday too. So, Pags, have a great day, have a great Easter, and we'll talk to you later, my friend.
Happy Easter, guys.
All right, happy Easter.
So there you go, folks. Pags, the Philly sports guy, always bringing us great.
And you see how Jack is always trying to instigate stuff?
Oh my God, yes.
Hey, listen,
he can't get over Marino.
I'm just saying, you know what I think when you think of Dan Marino? You don't think of the draft. You think of the quickest release in the history of football. Maybe that's his legacy.
Maybe, and maybe not. I mean, I don't know.
You know what I think about Marino is when I broke his rib.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah, yes. I can't believe you got to him. He released the ball too quick. No one ever got to Dan Marino.
They could hit him after he threw the ball back then, Jack.
Well, under today's rules, Jim would have been given a 2-game suspension.
Yes, I would have. Yes, I would.
He would have to pay the bill.
And I like Dan. Me and Dan won the Senior Bowl together.
Oh, there you go.
See? So while he broke his rib, he said, "I'm sorry, Dan. I know we're good friends, but that's just the game, my friend." Folks, we're going to be right back.
Never personal, always business.
We're going to be right back. A couple of promotions. We'll be back pretty quick, so stick with us. This is Northeast Streaming Sports. Jack is a legendary Hall of Fame boxing writer. Mac spells cat with the letter K. Mac played football and baseball for 10 years, coached football for 12. Jack was the wiffle ball home run king of the neighborhood. Jack was a sparring partner of the middleweight champion of the world, Golden Gloves boxer. Mac still reads cereal boxes at breakfast. Together they form the Sports Odd Couple. Both know sports in every way, but mostly at odds with their commentary and opinion. The Mac and Jack Sports Show, 8 to 10 a.m. on Facebook Live, Northeast Streaming Sports YouTube channel, Thursday through Sunday. Also on Spotify. Tune in and enjoy the show.
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready. I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, I'm from Brooklyn. Hey, isn't he?
I'll tell you guys, I have no idea what's going on with my board today. I'm all over the place. I think my board's more tired than I am. I got things popping up from YouTube and my downloads, and I'm just trying to throw things up there to see what's
Yeah,
anyway.
I noticed that because there's this little piece in there about let me tell you the team I hate the most, the Dallas Cowboys. And I know you're not like that. I know you're not.
By the way, I got to correct you, Jim. I'm Gil Brandt. I've been quiet about it. Great quarterbacks, the really great ones like Marino, Rodgers, Mahomes, Elway, Montana, Brady, Manning, they adjust to any system. I don't want to hear that they wouldn't adjust to a system as well. I know certain quarterbacks are a little better for certain teams. I understand that, but the truly great ones adjust to any system.
I can't argue with that, but that's what he told me. I can't argue with it. There must have been a reason behind it. But like Pags alluded to, there were other things in he had other issues because with that kind of talent, you're not going to go to the last pick in the draft.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Aaron Rodgers had some kind of problem too before he came out because he wasn't picked as high as he could have been. Maybe it's just the way he interviewed. Maybe it's just the way he talks with the teams. Maybe he just seemed You never know. There's a lot.
Yeah.
We forget that we're human beings a lot of times, right? We do a
That's
job, yes, and we go out there. We got boxes to check. We got questions to ask, but we get impressions of people, and I don't care what anybody says. If you got a bad impression of somebody, it's going to kind of lower their score, right? If you go in there and you talk to somebody, Jim, you hire people, Jack, you interview people, and they may be great at their jobs, and they may be something that has a lot of talent, but after you get done talking to guys, like, wow, I don't know if I really even like this guy, and that has to weigh, Jim. That has to weigh.
Yeah, there's no question, because this is going to be the face of your organization.
Yeah,
especially in football, and for whatever reason, they didn't feel it was a fit.
Yeah, I mean, you just can imagine. I mean, I when I first met Pags, I thought he was just the craziest, wildest guy. If you look at his videos, and then you talk to him, it's like, who is that guy that's talking to me right now? That's not a fan that's off the hook. He knows what he's talking about. So I think impressions, even they say you can't judge a book by its cover, but we do it. We look at somebody, I don't know. And after you get done talking to somebody, you say, well, I really don't know. And I think a lot has to do in any field. It's all about relationships, guys.
Oh,
Even when it comes to sports, even when it comes
and
to
we
sports.
always know that we talk about the Cowboys, but the Jets took a quarterback. They took Ken O'Brien instead of Dan Marino. So that's even worse.
And reportedly, Don Shula would have done that too. You know, the last pick that year you were drafted, what was the name? I'm having a brain. Darrell Griffin. Darrell Green turned out to be a Hall of Famer. The guy went 31, the last pick of the first round. So imagine that, the value that was all over the place. And, it's kind of, the draft is always so unpredictable because some of the guys drafted low aren't going to get there. Some of the guys a little later. Because certain of the guys, at the time you draft them, it's a valid pick, but you don't know that they're going to get better later on, that they're going to grow up very quickly after they got drafted, and they're going to shoot up and be so good. It's kind of, that's why, Jimmy Johnson used to do that. I don't remember the players, but he once drafted a guy based on upside over someone who was more of a sure thing, because he was looking for greatness as opposed to a guy who would just be solid and contribute. So not an easy thing to do.
I think a lot of people pick like that. Pickles gives a good question. He says, "What's your opinion on stadium funding?" We know Buffalo, the state of New York, is giving Buffalo something like $600 million. I don't know. That's because they're kind of the stepchild of New York, and New York City gets a lot more attention, or it's just because Buffalo fans are probably. If I had to pick the best, and I'll throw Green Bay in there, I'll throw Cleveland in there. I think the Buffalo Bill fans are the best fan group in the National Football League. I know it's a matter of opinion, but
I agree with you. They are some of the best fans. Unbelievable.
Jim, all the work they do off field with charities, they're just a giving, loving. They love their team. They love helping out causes. They're together. I know it's a big town, small town kind of thing where this is their pride and joy, and they love sharing it. Do you have a problem with the states funding these big stadiums for billionaires? And that's a good question.
That is a good question because, correct me if I'm wrong, Tennessee is looking at doing the same thing. They want a new stadium, and their stadium is relatively new, but they want a new stadium. Buffalo and some of the other things, they're saying that Carolina is looking at a new stadium. And these guys are billionaires. They made a success, and now they want the taxpayers to pay for these stadiums, which I don't know, Pickles. I don't know. Here, see? The state of Tennessee is giving up $5 million of corporate welfare to the
$500 million.
$500 million. So I don't know if that's right. I don't know. They should. The owners should fund the majority of it.
How about you, Jack? Do you think?
Let the people vote on it as part of a bill. During an election. I know for the Buffalo Bills. For the Buffalo Bills to leave Buffalo, that's like ripping their heart out. That's worse than anything in a big city. I mean, you take certain big cities, you could afford to lose a team like the Los Angeles market. They have other teams, so they lose one of their major teams. They can move on pretty easily, as much as it would hurt. But not Buffalo, not Green Bay. I mean, especially if in Green Bay, imagine them losing the Packers. It's like people have lost their identity. It's like taking away their last name, even worse than that in a sense. I feel, but I also see a point of these billionaires who could afford to milking out the city. I think let the city vote on it, as a bill. They might think certain services are more important, like the fire department, education, or whatever. But man, oh man, to lose the Buffalo Bills for Buffalo, that would be devastating.
I agree.
Well, let me ask you this then, because we all talk about the billionaires and they got all this money, and honestly, they really don't have $1 billion in their pocket, right? They got a lot of investments, they got a lot of things going on. They're the ones. I mean, it's really not that much of a risk, right, to buy a huge franchise in the NFL, especially the NFL, where the profit sharing is supposed to be passed around, and you're going to make money. But
Except for the Washington team, they don't.
Yes, you're right. Right. That's why I said in most cases, Jim, and maybe there's others. We'll find out. Maybe that's why the Broncos are sold out every game. The owners decided to clean house and get the heck out of there as fast as they can too. So, but I'm just talking. I don't know that.
No, but you're right. You're exactly right. And the Broncos are going to go for over $4 billion.
Right.
And
and Jim, so they're going to pay. They're going to recoup that cost because they are businessmen. They're going to have to pay the bills that are left behind, like the Mets owner had to do, right? Cohen had to go in there and pay off all the debt before they would even let him, take the wheel, right? He's got to be able to take care of all the debt, make sure that the organization is on firm ground. They're not just going to sell it to me and Jack, even though we are very wealthy. They're going to say, well, look at Jim. Jim was taking before Dan Marino, so that's a check in our favor. And then that Jack was a Golden Glove participant, even though he only fought 2 fights before that. But that's still a check in our thing. And me, I just like to talk a lot, so that might be a minus. That might be a minus. Yeah. But you know what I mean. It's got to be on firm ground. It's got to make money. The owner's got to vote you in every major sport, and you're putting up that amount of money. So then you turn around and say, listen, I want a new stadium to help recoup my money. I put up $4 billion. Can the state put up $600 million? See, I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't think you should. I think it should be split, maybe 50-50, maybe some kind of percentage. But as Jack says, the state's got to the people in the state got to be behind this.
Yeah. I don't know if it's 50-50, but a percentage, yes. And,
I don't know the answer, but some owners, they really love the city there, and I can't imagine them moving. I can't imagine the Yankees leaving and going to another city. It's just too prestigious with the New York market. And then you have Jerry Jones, who said to win another Super Bowl, he would write a big, big fat check. What's a big fat check? Is it $1 billion or whatever, at his age? I can't see the Cowboys ever moving out of Dallas because they can't quite get the stadium deal. What are they going to do? Move to St. Louis, the Cowboys? I just can't see it. In some cases, the city has a certain amount of leverage. Yeah. But unfortunately, there are other cities waiting with open arms, and give the money for a franchise to move.
Oh, no question.
That's what they are.
And you do make a good point, but the Cowboys moved out of Dallas years ago. They stayed in the Dallas-Fort Worth area because they're
called the Dallas Cowboys. If they went to St. Louis, they wouldn't be called the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah.
I would still call them that. Me, I still call the Cardinals St. Louis Cardinals. So that's how far back I go. So,
but the St. Louis Rams became the LA Rams, which they were before. Then they moved to St. Louis, and then they go back to LA.
San Diego Chargers.
Yeah. Now they're the LA Chargers.
I still say it. I can't help it. It's too much movement.
Yeah.
I don't even get into the Titans and the Browns and the New York Titans. I'm not even going to go there. So that's a whole other topic. Real quick, before we go off the air here, Two big wide receivers. Your prediction. Does Debo stay in San Francisco? Does Metcalf? Where does Metcalf go? I think he's going. So real quick, Jim, let me let you go first. Debo stays with the 49ers or is gone?
Yes. I think they work out their differences. And then I think Metcalf goes to the New York Jets.
Okay. How about you, Jack?
Yeah, I got it. Well, Debo removed his the 49ers logo from his Instagram account and supposedly has gotten death threats. It's getting sloppy, and it shows you how immature players can sometimes be. I mean, why remove it while you're still a member of the team? That's basically closing the door on coming back. But I think when all's said and done, he was too valuable for the 49ers. It was their most valuable player on offense. You know, he carried Jimmy Garoppolo to an extent. I think he finds himself back with the 49ers. DK Metcalf, wow, we're going to know before the draft. It's not going to take place after the draft. Yeah, I think he's going to come to the Jets. I think they need that one big dynamic name, that one name that stands out for the franchise. But the question is, if DK Metcalf goes to the Jets, is that good for a young quarterback like Zach Wilson, Mac Jim? Does he get intimidated by a DK Metcalf who's a powerful personality? Is that good for a young quarterback?
I mean, let me tell you this before we go off, Jim. I'll let you say first. Who you think? Do you think it would intimidate?
I think he'll be fine with them. I think it's the people they surround him with, just like you said in other situations, and it's the team. And they, from what I understand, he is a team player.
My prediction, check this out. DJ Metcalf ends up at the San Diego Chargers. Folks, that's it for today's Mac and Jack Sports Show. We'll see you again come Thursday. Jack and Frank, Monday, again, going over the fight, telling you about the boxing news. They'll be on at 7 Eastern, 6 Central tomorrow night. Jim and Byron, J&B Talking Shop. Great show, fun, covering all the NFL and all their teams, the Dallas and the Giants and some other sports. Join them. A great fun show. Folks, have a great Sunday. NBA playoffs playing right now. I'm picking the Celtics to win game 1. What do you guys think before I cut it off here?
I'll go with the Celtics to win this series ultimately. In
tonight,
Jack,
tonight.
Good night.
What, Jack? Today?
Today, one game. I mean, I'm going to go with the Celtics to win.
Okay, 2-1. We got the Celtics. Jim's got the Nets. So there you go, folks. Check it out. And I hope whatever team you're a fan of wins today. Have a great one, folks.